Okay, here is the note 6, evaluating expressions. Put your name, date, and period, please. The essential question is, how do you evaluate algebraic expressions and powers? So we got some vocabulary words here. It says a letter used to represent one or more numbers. So fill in your blanks. Okay. The second one, this is an algebraic expression, is a collection of numbers, variables, and operations. Okay. The next one says evaluating an expression is substituting a number for the variable performing the operations and simplifying the results. Okay, a power is an expression that represents repeated multiplications of the same factor. So a power would be something like m to the 8th power. This whole thing represents a power. The base is the number or expression that is used as a factor. In a repeated multiplication, so the base would represent the m here. And then the exponent is a number or expression that represents the number of times the base is used as the factor. So the exponent is the 8, is the little number, is the 8. Okay. The first example here is one that's to evaluate the expressions. So I'm going to write these down real quick. I have y plus 12, 47 minus x, 0.08a, and 12.5 plus m. Okay, and then on each one of these I say, okay, well, let the y equal 29. On B, we're going to let the x equal 38. On part C, we're going to let the a equal 7.5. And on D, we're going to let the m equal 7.6. Okay. When I go to my problems, when I want to evaluate, I'm going to actually solve it. So I'm going to take the 29 on the first one and replace it in my problem so that I actually have 29 plus 12. Evaluate means we want to find out what that equals. 29 plus 12 is 41. That's my answer. On B, they tell me that the x is 38, so when I replace it, that becomes 47 minus 38. When I do that in my calculator, I come out with 9 as my answer. On part C, remember when these two things are together, there's not an operation between them. That means we're actually multiplying. So it's like putting this in parentheses and saying we're going to multiply the two things. So I have 0.8 times 7.5 because I'm replacing what the a is. When I do my calculations here, it comes out to equal a whole number, 6. That surprised me. On D, I have 12.5 plus, and this time the m is going to be 7.6. If I type it in, I come out with a decimal answer. 20.1 is my answer, and it's okay to have the decimal because my problem was decimal answers as well. Okay, on the second example here, we have 4 sample problems, but what we're going to do is going to write the power in words, and then we're going to write them as a product. So it's if I take the first one and say, okay, this is going to be 7 to the, with a little 2 as an exponent. Okay, my words is I'm actually going to have to write the words for it. 7 to the second power. I could also say 7 raised to the second power, and because it is the second power, I could also say 7 squared. So I have actually 3 ways of writing this particular one. The product means that I'm just going to show it stretched out the way it looks. Now remember, up here an expression was the combination of the 2 items, the base and the exponent. So here my base is a 7 and 2 is the exponent, and this 2 is the exponent, and that represents the number of times that the base is being used as a factor. In other words, the number of times I'm multiplying. So I'm going to take the base and I'm going to write it the number of exponents. So since I have a 2, I'm going to have 7 and a 7, and I'm going to put a dot between them, meaning I'm multiplying. If you want, you can put parentheses. Okay. Alright, on my second example, they give us a 5 with a 5 as an exponent. So the words when I write it will be 5 to the, and 5 as an exponent is 5th power. And then the product model of this problem would be a 5, and I have to write it 5 times. Okay, so what if I have a fraction now? Suppose I have 1/2 raised, or with the little 3 as an exponent. So my words okay, if I'm going to write it, the 1/2, and I'm going on this one, I'm going to go ahead and say raised to the, and the little 3 would be represented as the 3rd power. And if I'm showing it as a product, I have the 1/2, and I'd multiply it times 1/2, and then one more set of 1/2s. Excuse me. Alright, last one. What if I have, let's go orange. Okay, so what if I have m to the, with m with a 7? Okay. So the words will be I'll have letter M raised to the, and I have a little 7 as an exponent, so that will be the 7th with a TH, and here I'll have power. the product, the base, my base is an m, and I have 7 of them, so I'm going to write it 7 times. And there's my examples. Okay, if I go to the back side, have example 3, we're saying, okay, we're going to evaluate the power. Well, remember, evaluate means we're actually solving. Going to solve it, but it's written in power form. So if I give you 3 to the 4th power, or I give you 2/3 to the 4th power, what this looks like is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. But I don't need to do this, I just need to be able to put this in my calculator. And if I go to my calculator, I can put the 3 in easily, but I need to get to the exponent and put a 4. Well, that involves using this button on the side called a caret. And when I push that button, it raises my exponent up to the top, which allows me to enter a 4, so I have my picture looking the same as my problem. I push enter, I get 81. Okay. If you're using a calculator that's different than what I have, when I do 3 with the little caret, I get this little symbol, the caret symbol, and I'll put a 4 beside it, so it looks like this. And I push enter, and it still comes out to be 81. So it depends on what type of calculator you have as to whether it has a little caret in this fashion with a 4, or it looked the way I had to start out with. Okay. Alright, and there's my answer, 81. If I go to the fraction, remember it's in parentheses, so I'm going to push a parenthesis, and then 2 divided by 3, close your parenthesis, and then I have the exponent, so that means push the caret button again, and then put the 4th power, and enter, and I get this big old long decimal. Well, my problem was not a decimal, it was an actual fraction, so I need to change this back from a decimal to a fraction, which, remember, that involved using the math button here, so I'm going to push it. And then I'm trying to make it a fraction, so I'm hitting a number 1. I get this, so enter, and I have my fraction of 16 over 81. And there's your answer. Okay, on example 4, it says we want us to evaluate the expression. So here we're evaluating, we're solving, and the expression means we have letters and numbers together. So here we go. If I take the first one, it has x to the 4th power, and they tell me that x is going to equal 2. Well, if I replace the 2 in for the x, that means this changes to a 2 to the 4th power. Well, if I type it in, 2 raised to the 4th power, that equals 16. And that's my answer. Okay, if I try it with a different one, say n raised to the 3rd power, when n is a decimal of 1.5. Well, do as like we did before, plug it in for the n, so that means this is 1.5 to the 3rd power. Put it in your calculator, 1.5 raised to the 3rd power, and it equals this long decimal, 3.375. Okay, now realize this is my answer. I do not have to change that to a fraction because my problem was a decimal. I had a decimal here. So I'm going to leave this as my answer for my problem. Okay. Here are 4 independent practice problems that I want you to work. The first one has the y equaling 4, so plug 4 in for the y and evaluate it. On number 2, we're going to write the words and product of 3.2 raised to the second power. On number 3, they want us to evaluate what 3 to the 5th power is, so solve it. And then 4, here's your expression, kn, and they say the k is 9 and the n is 4.5, so you're going to plug them in and find out what it equals. I'll give you a couple minutes to do this and we'll check your answers. Okay, once you have these worked, do make sure you answer your summary question, which, remember, it was how do you evaluate algebraic expressions in powers. So you have 4 examples here showing you how to do that process. Make sure you answer that, and you can start your homework.